Hello, everybody. Hope you're all doing fantastically well. Apologies, I have to say, big apologies for being late. My laptop decided to have an absolute number on me, so it is my fault. It's my fault. Partially, I'm blaming Oscar as well because Oscar said something was going on with him, but we'll let him off. No, it was my fault. We're back here with One Leeds. We've got another episode on the channel, another debrief. We've got loads of content out for you guys today as well. Make sure you're checking out all that good stuff, and we're back here with another show. There's nearly 100 of you in the building, which I didn't expect with us being so late, so make sure you're slapping a like on the video. We've got Daniel Farke's press conference to talk through. We've got a new Robbie Fowler shirt ready for its One Leeds debut. We'll have to educate Gabe on who Robbie Fowler is. We're back discussing everything Leeds United, and without any further ado, we're back. Hello.
I loved that you just bait the comments. I know who Robbie Fowler is, you absolute waste man.
Bubba says, at home, White kit 3 points. Oh, God, I'm getting a bit of heat. Here we go. Connor, sort your fringe out. Who got it for you, Stevie Wonder? There we go in the building. Good things in life are those waiting for. Jamie, you bang on, mate. You bang on. Oscar, returning to the channel, mate. How on earth are you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. A pretty rough week, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. A few health issues in the family, but all good now, guys. All good. They're pretty scary, but it does kind of like put into perspective getting stressed about Leeds United and things like that. It's don't get me wrong, that Rotherham game still annoys me now, and the fact it could be down to 5 points, but it is what it is. I'm doing good though, mate. I'm doing good, and you might notice I've developed a microphone as well. I've not been. It looks like a beard from here, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does look like a beard.
Yeah. Hybrid look, but yeah. I mean, a bit like Connor though. I notice Connor always tends to hold his mic. I have got an option to put it in a stand, but I prefer it. I like this. I like it. Just feels more,
Mate, I'll be honest, mate. I'll be honest. That isn't out of preference. I basically need to sort this thing out.
Right, okay.
The wire in my main mic has been an absolute nightmare, so I've had to substitute to the Rode mic, which is actually a pretty good substitution, to be honest with you.
Solid.
But yeah, all good, mate. Yeah, I'm liking the upgrade. It's very good on the eye as well. It does definitely look like you've got a beard, but you'd sort of like transitioned a little bit there with John Motson, so it's looking good.
Go for somewhere different.
Yeah, Gabe, all good, mate.
There's no hope for either of you two with these microphones.
Not with that spaceship in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. No, things are good. Had a American Thanksgiving last week.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was good. Quite nice. Went out to a maple farm actually for it, so that was good.
Nice. Paul Gray says, all right, guys, love that kit, Connor. Happy days, mate. With the amount this has cost me, everyone needs to be loving it, and everybody.
It makes the whole room turn yellow, doesn't it? The light reflecting off of it.
Does, mate. Old school, 2000.
Fully light Leeds United.
2002. Yeah, very, very happy with this. So yeah, I've not taken it off all day, and probably won't take it off for a while. Bubba says Gabe's mic is bigger than the Millennium Falcon. Oscar doing his Ken Dodd impression.
All shipping the Star Wars continuity.
Yes, Droopy, right. Exactly, the decor kit. I'd show you out on the background, but you can check out One Lee's Twitter for that. But right, okay, lads, let's get into the main discussion. Today, obviously, we've heard Daniel Farke's comments on his press conference. Interesting stuff, really. Speaking about Liam Cooper's leadership, dependability, reliability, talking on Nick Hammond as well. But also, I think, a few key points in the team setup, and Stuart Dallas all of a sudden being the only injury on the list. Oscar, it's pretty positive news, isn't it?
Yeah, massively, because we all know it means Jed Spence gets nearer and nearer to the team. He obviously won't start at the midweek. I don't think he'll start. I'd love to be proven wrong. But it's just good to have that option, hopefully soon. Even just seeing him on the bench would be a nice little boost, in terms of just to get more from that right hand side, really. I think last couple of weeks, I think we have seen a little bit of a drop off in productivity on that side in terms of Dan James. Not just because of Dan James. I just think his game will be better with the Jed Spence I think anyone's game will be better with the Jed Spence alongside them. So yeah, that's a boost in that kind of sense. And yeah, obviously Byram and Pascal being back available as soon as possible is also massively helpful for us. But yeah, listen, there's no doubt about it. When we do have to either rest players or have injuries, there's a big drop off in the team, and we saw it. On Friday, no greater example in terms of it was much more difficult for us. I think that's a game on Friday that realistically the mistake comes from a technical error, in the build-up. It wasn't just one mistake. It was a dodgy. I think we were dodgy in the build-up all game, really. In terms of making a lot of unforced errors. I just don't think they happen with Pascal and Barham on the pitch, and that's the reason they start games at the end of the day. If there wasn't any drop-off, you'd see the others start a lot more games. So there's no doubt about it. Having a full strength squad and team available is a massive boost, and we have to be at it for Wednesday. We have to. There's no excuses now. This is the time now. Full squad available, apart from Stewie D, obviously. We have to put a run of games together. 4 wins out of 5, 5 wins out of 6, something like that, to really put the pressure on now with Ipswich, because Ipswich has started to wobble. We need to really capitalise.
Connor, I hope someday, I pray someday, someone fancies me the way Oscar fancies Jed Spence. I mean, honestly, everyone needs that kind of love in their life. Look, I actually was thinking about it the other day, and I think we're all excited to see him come into the team. What if he comes in and has like a Rocket Jr.?
What happened? He's had that debut. He was solid against Wednesday. I know it was only 10 minutes, but it's okay. He's got through the debut. I'll class it as that. He's got through that dodgy first debut.
Who was right back that game before when he came on, didn't he? Who was playing on the right? Was it Shackleton or was it Ayling?
I think it was Ayling, and Shackleton was left back. Someone might correct that in the chat, but I'm pretty sure.
I remember he came on for 10 minutes and already he looked about 4 levels above Luke Ayling, and he didn't do anything, but there's a couple of nice runs and a couple of really good interchanges with him and someone on the right-hand side and overlaps, and I thought, right, well, already inside 8 minutes, I'm convinced.
I just can't think of anything more devastating to this channel and to the Leeds United fandom as if Jed Spence makes his, not debut, but comes back from injury, and for some reason, we just get
He won't necessarily be fully at it from the off.
Hold on. This is a guy who constantly talks about not having superstition.
I said luck, not superstition.
Yeah, but he kind of falls into
superstition is like, it's the 28th, and the star map said this last time it was the 28th, and we know we can't go down to Rotherham and win on the 28th because it didn't happen in 1974.
Yeah, but why is he suddenly picking up an injury? Why would that happen again?
No, I didn't say he would pick up an injury. I said if he comes back from injury and just lays a stinker, just pulls like a,
Why would that happen?
I've been reading up on Rocket Jr. lately. Is really what's happened. So there's this like list of Leeds players that were just ultimate busts on loan, and I was just reading through it, and I was like, oh yeah.
there is definite Leeds have. Oh, well, I'm not going to say history. She'll have a meltdown. But Graham Stone,
Barry Douglas vibes.
Yeah, Oscar, relax. Graham Stoner says, smash the like button. We need more Connor content on YouTube. Not sure about that, but thanks, mate. Love the channel, Connor. Great content. Echo my thoughts. Bloody hell. Are these my burner accounts? Thanks, Adam. But yeah, guys, before I don't ask this a lot, but just please make sure you're liking the video. It just means that, you're enjoying this sort of stuff, and we'll keep it up to the best of our ability, obviously. But yeah, getting back onto Jed Spence, it does get you excited because it is the feel of a new signing. It really is. And I know we don't speak about Spence a lot because we've not really been able to, but I think we should dedicate a little bit of time to exactly, get everybody excited with exactly what he can bring to this side. That Forest season where he was just unbelievable. Don't get me wrong.
We haven't spoken about Jed Spence. I'm quite sure we have.
This guy over here sensing it by myself, but we
haven't. Yeah, this guy has, but we've not. I don't think we've dedicated enough time to how much of an impact this is, him coming back. And I think, if he was coming back in sort of an attacking sense, Oscar, everyone would be talking about, we're getting a new striker back or we're getting a new winger back. But this guy is going to be so important in this setup. And I think it's in a Daniel Farke system in particular, which would have swayed, in my opinion, Jed Spence to come to the club. The fact that he's going to be playing in a certain type of system in a certain type of way where attacking influence is encouraged. I'm not saying this guy's going to be back as well for tomorrow's game or even the weekend.
I was going to ask, do you see him playing tomorrow?
No, I don't. But I do think from Farke's comments, surely in the next 10 days he's going to be available for selection.
He would have to be, right? I mean, I get that there's working his way towards Farke fitness, we can call it. I know he has certain expectations. It's not just being back from injury, but fit to play. I mean, he brought a number of guys back slowly, but you have to wonder. I guess I feel sadder too coming. I guess with Jamie, with Archie Gray playing so well in that position, there isn't necessarily a rush. But yeah, I mean, certainly he's going to open up a whole different level of options in the attacking third, and we did see that for that short period of time in that little cameo appearance.
Yeah, Oscar, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, it's just, I think it's one of those players, Jed Spence, a bit like when Joe Rodon first arrived. I just think he gives the whole team a bit of a boost. Just the whole thought of having that right hand side, the fact that Rodon and Spence have played together at Tottenham and Rennes, have that experience of playing alongside each other. I just feel like Spence can come in and make an impact straight away. I'm not saying he's going to be on that Forest kind of level straight away in terms of those level performances, but I think it's going to be a noticeable improvement on what we've already had in that right back spot, and I think he's going to build up to that. And we've got to remember as well, at Forest they weren't an especially attacking team. Under Steve Cooper, he's never really had a team that fully plays to his strengths. In terms of fully lets him express himself at fullback. And I'm thinking if he can put in those performances in what was quite a defensive-minded, quite not the most creative and sparky kind of Forest team. Imagine what he can do in this Leeds team with people like Rutter, Somerville, Perot alongside him, Ampadu, and Rodon, good players with the ball at their feet, technical footballers. The technical quality in this team is high. I just think Spence straight away is going to work really well, and it's another dimension to the team. It's another form of creativity. The fact that a lot of our creativity does centre around Somerville and Rutter. We can't lie about that. I think we said that all season, really. Being a little bit too reliant on those two individually for creativity. I think Spence, the fact that he can dribble the ball better than any fullback in this league, I'm convinced of that. I think he's, in terms of almost winger-like in terms of how he carries the ball, it's an extra boost to the team. It just gives us more from that right side as well. And, even with people like Joel Perot, will it get more out of Perot? The fact that we're spreading the play out, down the right as well as the left, it gives Perot a little bit more space down the middle, to be a little bit more influential than what he has been so far. So, and, it's another form of creativity. We know Spence can put a ball into the box. Perot, he has got on the end of stuff really well so far this season. Can we get more delivery into him as well? So I only see positives from that. I only see positives from that. And the other sense of it as well, something we haven't maybe touched on too much, is the fact that it gives us more depth in midfield because Archie Gray becomes a midfield option rather than the right back option. So that's another boost because let's not forget, Kamara and Ampadu are not going to be able to do 46 games this season. We've got a crazy run of games coming up. Archie Gray's going to have to play some games in midfield, possibly even Gruev as well. We've got to rotate, and we know Daniel Farke will not be scared to rotate. But the issue is, when we have rotated and had to rotate, you've seen our probably two most disjointed performances, Stoke and Rotherham. So that is a concern, but that is something we're going to have to face. But I feel a lot better about it with people like Archie Gray going to midfield, players that are already in their own right good enough to start games. So yeah, it'll be interesting, but I only see positives at this moment in time.
Can we also just call out the recovery speed of a Jed Spence? I remember even in that a short cameo, he has something that none of other.
Mate, we would have lost that Wednesday game if Spence hadn't made that recovery challenge against was it Windass in the last minute.
Of course, it was Windass. But listen, he has something in the locker there that none of our other players have, and we don't have a slow team. But he really, that recovery speed, he may not be the best one-to-one defender. That's not really his game. Although I think he from what I've seen, he can be positionally disciplined as well. I think what impresses me most and gives me more assurance as a center half is that that even if the defense gets a little bit overextended or overcommitted, he has elite recovery speed, which is, fantastic.
Yeah. A lot of discussion in the chat about Bamford. I did want to touch on his comments about January. Now there's context that needs to be applied to this. I think it was maybe in reaction to one of the journalists essentially saying that, are you going to be retaining, I'm paraphrasing, but you're going to be retaining all of your players. He said that it was going to be sort of a calm and chilled window. I think the positives we can take from what Kinnear said is there was 2 loans that, were available, and the club may go in for 2 loans a couple of months ago. I don't all trust what Angus Kinnear says a lot of the time, to be honest with you. So we'll wait and see what happens there. But calm and chilled window. I'm a massive fan of that when it comes to retaining players. And when I say retaining players, I'm not talking about Gelhardt. I'm not talking about even Cresswell, Leo Yelder, Christopher Clarkson, players of this ilk. I'm talking about like a Willie Gnonto, who's the main one I think that I'm looking at and I'm thinking I want to retain. Now, when it comes to incomings, I do think that would be a big mistake. I do. And you look at the league position now and you think to yourself, oh, well, it's okay, it's fine and dandy. But I think right now, and you can't always be reactive, but I think in football in January, especially with the position we're in, we have to not only be reactive to the market, but we have to be reactive to other teams as well. And I think you're going to get Southampton, I think you're going to get Leicester, and probably even Ipswich. Ipswich have got a good backing behind them going into that window and strengthening. I think it will be very naive for Leeds to go into this window and not plug the gaps. I think there's a lot of gaps, in my opinion, still, which sounds crazy, but still need plugging and still need improving when it comes to depth, but when it also comes to first team profiles. Gabe, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but and I'm not saying for one, by the way, that Farke said we're not doing anything. It was just flickered in my mind when he was talking about a calm and chilled, but maybe what he was illustrating is how nuts the summer window was, how many players left, how many players came in. Maybe just discussing that. But just in terms of general transfers in and out, where do you stand?
Yeah, I mean, there are positions that we don't need much help in, right? I mean, provided Spence can stay healthy, you have a pretty deep midfield with Gruev and Gray being rotated. So I'm happy at the center of the park. I also think that we're pretty set with wingers. It would be nice to... I don't know what he's going to do as far as, does he want a true number 10 versus just somebody playing in that attacking midfield slot, somebody with a profile of a number 10 who can make the passes the number 10 can make on a more consistent basis. I don't know. I would imagine that maybe some depth at center half, given some of our injury issues we have in the past with Cooper. And I think we're still weak reinforcement wise, especially at left back. I mean, my goodness, we certainly need help in that position. So I think that the terms are relative. What he means by chilled out is maybe 2 or 3, maybe loan signings here and there. We're certainly not going to be bringing 5, 6 players in. I don't see that happening realistically. And to be honest, I don't think Farke seems to be a guy that likes a settled side, likes the group of players he works with over a longer period of time. So I'm not sure he would want a lot of disruption. But I think, bringing in another left back, another center half, and then maybe another striker. I would say I have made my opinions very clear about what we need to do at the goalkeeper position, but I don't want to turn this into a conversation about Meslier. And I don't think that's going to happen, despite his just shocking underlying data and performances. I just don't see it happening. So, I think 3 signings would be a pretty tame window. And he could also just mean chill in terms of the money we throw around. I mean, that could just mean maybe we'll look at some budget deals, some deals on the cheap, some loan signings. But for me, it's a relative term, meaning he doesn't expect us to throw around a bunch of big money in January. And I think that's probably wise. I mean, we do need some reinforcements, but I think it can be done for good business. And so far, Hammond and the team over there has done a really good job with smart business. So now that we have some professionals steering that ship and working in tandem with the manager, who I don't think any signings come in that he didn't really want. And so far, I think they've all been very successful. I'm quite happy to remember we weren't very happy with Sam Byram coming in. I mean, it's not that we were angry about it, but we weren't jumping up and down. He's done a really good job and came in on a free. So I think that's probably, I would anticipate that's probably more what he means, just in terms of money spent.
Yeah, I mean, another thing as well is the fact that, you've got players to come back in. I mean, Spence is effectively, I know not technically a new signing, but it's like a new signing. It's already all of a sudden dropped in sort of December time. And I think the thing to mention as well is it's another month, until the transfer window. A lot might change between now and then. We might pick up an injury, unfortunately. Suspensions might kick in. Drops off in form as well. There's some players that are playing by far their best football of their careers at this moment in time. We don't need to go into any detail on who they are. There's a few fair few players, and maybe you might see some drops off in form. With so many games coming up, big games as well. Some tough games in there as well. So that's a factor too. At this moment in time, though, the squad as it is, I don't think it's a squad that's going to cost us promotion. I think if we miss out on promotion this season, I don't think it's down to quality in the starting 11. Personally, I don't think there's anywhere massively glaring. Listen, I think any team in this league will look at their starting 11 and say, oh, yeah, there's bits and pieces we can improve. But there's nothing fundamentally in the squad where I'd say we're lacking, in that kind of sense. Maybe creating number 10, but it depends on what Farke wants to do with that. In terms of at this moment in time, he's made it quite clear. He sees Rutter as more of the 9, Perot as more of the 10, and you can't really play a creative 10 behind Rutter because it takes away from Rutter's game. So there's all sorts of different ways of looking at it, and I think the picture could be very different in a month's time, as I've already said. But probably depth. I'd definitely go along the lines of what Connor was saying there about the depth. There shouldn't be as big a drop off in terms of performance when we do rotate as what there is at this moment in time.
So is that you just talking about the word fundamental? Then is that not a fundamental issue that whenever we
starting 11 wise, I don't think there's any fundamental issue, but depth wise, I think that is a concern. But I think for any team at this level, when there's a drop off, it's not. I don't think it's as big as what the drop off is for us. Leicester, for example, when they go from Vardy to Iheanacho, it's no real difference. Different profiles, but yes, we do probably need to look at bringing in a bit more depth in certain areas. I think up top, because I think low key, if Perot picks up an injury or Rutter picks up an injury, that would be a bit of an issue for us.
It'd be a massive issue.
Yeah, it would be a massive issue. I think underthinking that. Yeah, it would be a massive issue. You only have to look at the panic. Going into that Rotherham game.
So Oscar, are you saying there's more of a drop off for Leicester than there is?
No. Much more of a drop off for us, I think, compared to the rest of the top 4. So I do think we need signings, but I don't think necessarily big marquee signings. I think that they mentioned about 2 loan signings is, I wouldn't mind that, to be honest, because we have to not look too far forward, because obviously we've still got a big job to do, but we've got to say, is it wise for us to go and spend 15, 20 million on new players? I'm not sure. I think we just need 1 or 2 clever loan signings, a bit like the Rodon signing, a bit like the Spence signing. There's a lot of players at this Premier League level, even abroad, who are not playing football at this moment in time, who would be more than good enough for us, but probably not quite good enough for the level they're playing at. Some one-off signings like that. And I think that's the route we'll go down. We know Nick Hammond, we've seen him at Newcastle in terms of the recruitment there. They went for proven, experienced kind of players in terms of Trippier, Dan Burn in that first sort of transfer window before they were going into the heavy spending.
Left the big one out then, didn't you?
Yeah, I conveniently left out Guimaraes. I conveniently left him out. But again, proven in the sense in terms of in France. But I think as well, when you saw in the summer what we did in terms of recruitment, we went for proven players. I think we'll do the same again. I don't think we'll go for any kind of punt type of signings, like Augustin, for example.
Good.
I can't see us doing anything like that, to be honest. But I think just being clever about it.
Is that Farke on the phone, Oscar?
I know. Dude, can you see? I've got the echo cancellation on. It's obviously not done its job, has it? It's not done its job at all.
But I think, as Michael said, there, it's definitely difficult to get players in January. It is.
Well, also, Connor, there's something that with January transfers in the Championship, if you're not looking to stay in the division long term, you don't want to load yourself up with. I mean, it works with loan signings. I know there's a limit to how many you can bring in, but you don't want to load yourself up with a bunch of really strong Championship level talents and then have to offload a number of them off your payroll if you get promoted. Because I mean, it does create some difficulty because it's not like the Premier League where what you want is to have 4 or 5 players deep, anybody that could step into the starting 11, and it's a constant dogfight to get in. It's not typically how Championship sides are built, just because of the potential of going up, the potential of having to offload so many people. There have been teams that have been promoted that are in the situation where they have a bunch of players that are really good in the Championship. And because remember, we're not just talking about one level up, even though that's how it looks on the pyramid, that just can't play in the Premier League or aren't going to be good enough in the Premier League. And then you have this it's not so much a bloated wage bill, but an inability to move players So you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place where you do want to improve the squad, you want to improve for depth, but obviously at this level, if you're not going to be bringing in somebody who was, what like a Victor Gyökeres was last season to push the other forwards, that's what you would want to do in the Premier League, but you can't really do it in the Championship. So you have to sort of be not careful, but really deliberate about who you bring in. That's why loan signings make the most sense, because if they're going to displace someone from the starting lineup, they're only going to be there for a short period of time to potentially get you where you want to go. It's crafty. That's why they pay these guys a lot of money to make these decisions.
Yeah, I think you're right. I maybe just look at. I think these post-January is going to be a dogfight. It's going to be arduous. There's going to be a lot of games, and I just think Southampton's depth, I think, is. I think they've got a lot of depth, to be honest, in that side. I think Leicester.
Of course. There's no doubt. I mean, they've got three strikers.
I think Leicester have got a lot of depth in their side as well. And I just look at our starting 11, and I think it is really, really good. And I think when you look at our squad, it's very decent. But I'm just going to take you through a few of the drop downs that I've considered over the last couple of days. When Joe Rodon's out, you're almost looking at a Charlie Cresswell coming in. Now, I'm not saying Charlie Cresswell's a bad player whatsoever. I don't think Daniel Farke fancies him whatsoever, to be honest. I think Daniel Farke would be more willing to put Ethan Ampadu centre-back than Charlie Cresswell. That's how extreme I think it is. I just don't think, with the minutes he's played, he just doesn't fancy him. I think when you look at the Sam Byram drop-off even to Junior Firpo, a rusty Junior Firpo, but I do not think he is anywhere near even the top-level Championship. I just don't. I look at his game. I still think he's very, very risky. I just don't think he's positionally aware. I just don't think he is. I just simply don't think he's got the IQ. I don't know what it is. It just doesn't seem to have clicked with him. The drop-off for Rutter, if you're putting him in that 10 or 9 or whatever, but the drop-off will be an Ian Pervader. And then you're looking at a striker in general, that might be Perrault or Rutter, obviously the interchange, but the drop-off there might be a Patrick Bamford, They are significant drop-offs.
I don't think Farke will see that one as significant. I think we do, but I think Farke rates him. Patrick Bamford.
He might, and I think he does as well. I think every manager that's coming to Leeds seems to reference the Patrick Bamford where he scored 17 goals in the Premier League. I remember Marsh doing it. I remember Sam Allardyce doing it. That isn't Patrick Bamford anyway. It was an anomaly in 5 years.
Sam Allardyce found out. He told him never play like that for me again.
Yeah, but this is what I mean.
Great quote.
It's an anomaly, even 16 goals in the Championship when you go up. I mean, Pablo Hernandez got 9 that season. And the amount of chances we created. All I'm saying is, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but...
Those are the positions. That's exactly, in terms of the way I would look at it as well, in terms of those specific positions. I think certainly the fact that, we only really have one natural out-and-out left-back at the club, out-and-out left-footed left-back. And, even at that, if you ignore Junior Firpo's first 2 games back and general form, it's not great having an injury-prone left back who tends to dive into.
But Oscar, this is it as well. So we get him back. This is a constant pattern we've seen with him. We get him back. We'll have him back for a little bit. He might have a couple of decent games. A half decent period for a little bit at Leeds, including the Southampton game. There's another game in there where he played okay. Then he'll get injured. We know how these work. He gets injured, then he's out for a while, comes back, takes him a while to get back to a below average standard anyway. And we don't seem to be proactive in the left back position. For me, that this January, that is massive. They asked about Charlie Taylor in the summer, so they clearly know there's a problem there. We're looking at Ryan Manning, got pipped to the post. Sam Byram's come in, he's done a really good job. But what we've got to look at, I know it's all rosy right now, but long-term planning, future-proofing, it is not good enough having an injury-prone Sam Byram there and a below-average, injury-prone Junior Firpo who's still been linked to every Spanish club under the sun.
Well, you're still talking about 3 signings, essentially, then, Connor. You're talking about a left back, a center half, and then somebody leading the line in the center of the attack.
Maybe not someone, and this is going to be the difficult sell. This is going to be the really, really difficult sell because like you've quite rightly said, like Oscar's quite rightly said, the problem right now we have is convincing players to come to Leeds United to primarily be depth. Because for me, I'd be looking at a starting left back. Aside from that, I don't think we need any starters. The problem is the depth.
But
So
any player would look like if Farke said to him, "Hey, listen, so you're going to be able to compete for a starting job for the left back, and by the way, Sam Byram gets hurt a lot." Like you'd know that.
Yeah,
right?
but the issue is going to be for me when you're looking at like a number 9, or if you're looking at a centre back, they're going to want to come in and have minutes. They're not going to, and especially like you've said, Gabe, if you're looking for long-term signings that you're going to be, I did a transfer video the other day and I was speaking about Matt O'Reilly, Oscar, keep that.
Don't remind me.
Oscar,
I think that one's gone now. I think Matt O'Reilly's slightly unrealistic now.
But the whole point of the matter is obviously he wants to move to the Premier League and, there's a link there, whatever. But a lot of the players that you have to consider are players that you need to think of that are going to, be with Leeds in the Premier League. If we do get to the Premier League, they're going to be convinced. But the issue right now is, do you sell to a player, and this isn't our job, but do you sell to a player, a striker, let's say, I think we massively need as a backup option. Do you say, look, Joel Pereira's got 5 goals in 14 games. He's 6 goals in 14 games. He's our striker. His numbers aren't great at the minute. If you come into, this project that is Leeds United, there's a massive chance that you could take his jersey. There's a lot of things to weigh up, but for me, Leeds have got to sell something. They've got to do. Yeah,
and I mean, I wouldn't necessarily go for because I think if I'm looking at it, in terms of priority, I'd say probably a left-footed left-back's probably number 1. Because I think the fact that Sam Byram is probably the most injury-prone player and the fact is, Jed Spence, I wouldn't say, is massively out of the woods yet in terms of injuries. He might need Sam Byram to go over to right back potentially. So it's just good to have another option, a natural left-footed left-back option, just for any kind of sense. I know we've had success with Stuart Dallas going to left back, but it's always been a problem position for us. And
ironically, left back,
yeah. Ironically, since Charlie Taylor, our best solutions at left back have been
up every time.
Players that aren't left backs. Yeah, that's the irony about it. But yeah, say if it was a Charlie Taylor dropping down from the Premier League, or say, I don't know, it's probably totally unrealistic, but say like an Ian Martin who's not getting much football at Chelsea, coming down. If it's a signing like that on loan, I think it's sensible. I think it's not a total commitment. If we're not convinced they can, because you've got to look at players in January. Say if we're going into January second in the table, for argument's sake, we shouldn't be going out there spending big money on players who we're not even sure can step up to the Premier League. I think it should be low-risk loans that we just know are going to deliver. I've got championship experience, Martin, Charlie Taylor, all low fee, probably more for Charlie Taylor. But if Matt Target as well, potentially. That would be nice and solid. Someone like that, I think, would be perfect, in terms of just slotting into the back four, maybe not... demanding start straight away.
Reliable, Oscar. Reliable.
Yeah, reliable. You just know what you're going to get from him. A bit like what Sam Byram is for us. We know exactly what we're going to get for Sam Byram. He very rarely drops below a 7 out of 10. Most weeks he's 7 or 8 out of 10. Just someone like that.
I know he's been good, Oscar, but there are also, I know what we're saying here, but, look, I know there's an affiliation with Sam Byram. I think Sam's done really, really well. And, I always go on about Leeds being a meritocracy. And if you perform well, you play. But why can you not sell that to a left back? If you're coming into Leeds United, you're going to be the left back. You've got to sell that for me. I know Sam's been good, but, I do
think anyone that comes in has to earn their place. I do think that, because I think we had that issue. But no, I do agree. I think ultimately, someone like Ian Martin coming in, let's be clear about it, would take Sam Byram's place probably realistically on ability.
There's levels, Oscar, let's be honest.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. But they would have to earn their place. I think that's a key thing about it now, especially in the middle of the season. We've seen it we always forget, when we brought in Augustin, he was highly thought of, in Europe. We don't even need to go into that too much. But any kind of player, Barry Douglas, for example, but I do think we need to have that mentality that anyone that comes in has to earn their place. And I think
it's happening now, Oscar, isn't it? Like Willie Nanto's not playing, Dan James is.
That's a strength in the team. In terms of having that, and I think that has to stay. So if part of the sell, what the point I'm trying to get to is, if part of the sell to the players are that they have to be guaranteed starts, that's not a great route for us to go down at this stage of the season. In terms of
they won't get it anyway. Like there's just no. the manager may say that, and I think every manager probably says some variation of that to a player. You're going to be a big part of my plans, but at the end of the day, like, I doubt very much before Nanto pulled his stuff over the summer that Farke was saying, "Hey, do you know what you're going to have to do is beat Dan James for a starting?" Like, I'm sure he said, "Hey, no, Willie, you're going to kick on. You're going to be great in this division." It's pretty clear that Farke is going to make anybody earn it. That being said, you do bring in a guy who has superior goods. We see what happens. But long story short, I mean, I truly think the number is going to be like 3 max, which as a January window is a pretty modest.
Yeah, shouldn't go any higher than that. You shouldn't be bringing in any more than 3 because I think it upsets the balance then. Because a key thing to mention is last season. Players who came in last season pretty much started games straight. Other than Rutter, ironically, pretty much started games straight away. In terms of
Oscar, who'd be your 3? Sorry to interrupt. Who'd be your 3?
Well, definitely natural left back. I'm actually going to say a number 10, a natural number 10. It's going to be quite high up the list because if we've got games where Joel Perreault, it's not happening for Joel Perreault. It's nice to have that option where you can push Joel Perreault further up, maybe put Rutter out wide onto the right and have a natural, sort of a Pablo type in between the lines. Obviously, that's going to be a very difficult sign to get done in January. And I think it's got to be the right number 10, but that one will be quite high on the list for me as well. Just to change the dynamic, I'd probably have that as a higher priority than the natural striker because I think the key thing is if we are bringing in new signings, not only do they improve what we've already got, but the different profiles to what we've already got. They can change the way we play. Look at the Rotherham game. We couldn't change the angle of the attack. When Perreault went off, there wasn't anyone to come on who you're thinking, oh, they're a natural number 10. We can just, play in a slightly different way. And that's definitely a priority, those 2 for me. And then thirdly, I'm actually going to be quite controversial on the third one. I'm tied between backup goalkeeper and striker. I think in terms of, it seems like a weird one to say, but I think Carl Darlow, in terms of performances, you have to just go off performances. I think his ability level is better than what his performances have been so far. But I think there needs to be more pressure on Meslier, to be honest. I think we're kind of seeing that. I think Meslier is I'm not saying Meslier is comfortable in terms of his personality and not absolutely going to the max. I'm not questioning that at all. I'm just saying that I think almost in his mind, he's not going to not start games, even if he has a drop off in form at this moment in time. I just think that little bit of pressure on Meslier would be good. I think only good for him as well. I think that proper experience, almost like a Joe Robles kind of thing, as a backup, just because it's a long season. Let's not forget, it's a long season. Meslier is still a young goalkeeper. I do think he should have done better on the Rotherham goal. I think a couple of weeks before that, he got the Huddersfield goal. Just having that little bit more pressure on the goalkeeping position. And maybe even a goalkeeper who's better with his feet. And it's just, I'm not saying to drop Meslier. I'm not saying that at all. I feel
it's okay. No, but it's okay. Just so we get this clear, and we can get this clear in the comment section.
I just feel that Joe Wayman, when he sees this in
Joe's not going to say much about Meslier for the next couple of weeks. I don't think so.
Yeah, not after Friday. But let's be honest. If you don't think he's good enough, I don't think he's good enough. Gabe doesn't think he's good. And we're not saying you think that, Oscar. I think you've got a little bit.
I'm on the fence, really.
But what I will contest is I hate this notion of he's young. Look at the amount of games he's played.
Yeah, of course.
He's played more minutes than any other goalkeeper for his age. So right now, really, age. Okay, we can look at what 23. This guy's played a lot of minutes for this club.
Yeah, but I'll say there is things. Definitely, you're definitely right. I think the point I was making about the age wasn't so much that he's going to drastically improve in certain positions. He's not suddenly going to become a ball-playing goalkeeper like an Edison or an Allison. He's not going to suddenly become really good for his feet. You've either really, as a goalkeeper, I think you're either naturally good for your feet or not. I think it's a difficult thing to coach.
Oscar, it's just simple errors. The simple errors I'm asking for. Like I didn't agree when Joe was saying that. I think he's got better from corners. I don't think he has. I think his handling still suspect. I think his decision making is awkward. And, once again, how many times have we seen this with Illan Meslier? I don't want this to turn into a witch hunt again, but he's beaten on his near post again. And he's beaten.
It's definitely not his body has been a weakness for a while, to be fair.
I know, mate, but I don't. Like, for me, I think it's a little bit. We're living in a fantasy world when we're just saying, it's
he's not going to improve.
It's just his feet he needs to sort out. There's multiple facets to Illan Meslier's game which have to improve. And let's be honest, I've said this on a video. It's because we control and dictate games that he's not been tested whatsoever. When he was tested in the Premier League, we know the defensive midfield was bang average, but he was tested way more. He's not tested at all so far at this level, and I think when he has
the stats,
tested,
I mean, not to take away from Gabe here, but the stats, not just in terms of back save percentage, but we've conceded 17 and 17. When you look at us defensively this season, we shouldn't be conceding a goal a game. Based on what we do defensively as a unit, that Plymouth game, the Rotherham game, both should be clean sheets for me. Yes, it's only cost us a point. Well, it's cost us 2 points. In terms of the mistake Meslier made. We do have to be.
That's such a Leeds United metric, though, Oscar, to be like, well, is this guy good enough? Well, he hasn't been directly the only one at fault for a loss, so I guess he hasn't been that bad. Like that's how conditioned we are for calamity.
Well, the thing is, this season, as Connor said, there's not going to be many games where you're going to have games where you say, "Oh, that mistake cost us a game," because most games, I'm hoping so anyway, we're going to be quite comfortable in. In terms of that Plymouth game, we were comfortable in when it went to 2-1. Obviously, it got uncomfortable after that, but we are cruising in most games. We should be cruising in most games realistically.
I just don't know why we do this for him. Like every other position, like we've had like Dan
James.
This is
why I brought up
Oscar, Dan James, right? Dan James has had a boatload of really good games this season, right? He has one bad game, and we're ready to replace him with Nanto. And I think all of us are probably there. I am too, right? Because we know that Nanto's better. I just don't understand why we look at a guy. He's been a starting goalkeeper for 5 seasons in a row, who has a career save percentage of less than 67%. That is bad in any division. Any single division. That's his career save percentage. The top priority for a goalkeeper is to stop the ball from going in the net. And like loads of people do it a lot better. I just don't understand this. None of us want Brendan Aronson back, right? I sure don't. Do you? Do any of you too? This guy's 23. He's had 4 years as a professional. So we could say, well, he's young. He's going to get better. We don't make those excuses for him. We don't make those excuses for any other player. I don't get why we do it for Meslier. It's because we paid money for him.
I think. Do you know what I've just done there whilst you guys have been talking, right? I've just gone on Leeds results, right? And I've just clicked on 2 games. 2 games. Leeds 4, Huddersfield 1. Leeds 2, Bristol City 1. I've just gone to those games. I had no prior. I can't even remember the goals. I've just gone on both goals. They're his fault. So I think a lot of the. I don't want this once again to be a witch hunt with Meslier. I know Oscar's mentioned it, and I think it's a really good wider point when it comes to the goalkeeper. It does seem to be like he's a bit undroppable at the minute, and a lot of fans still think he can do okay in the Premier League. I still think there's an issue there. So wider scope, Oscar, I don't really mind as missing. I think he needs replacing. I think he needs replacing in the summer. I think we can get by with him this season because we're going to be so dominant in games. For me, who we can't get by without is Joe Rodon. So for me, you have got to have some sort of backup in quality for when he's out. So for me, I think we can sustain without Meslier. There are going to be mistakes. We know that. He might get us out of a few hellish moments like he did with Leicester, to be fair to him. But I ultimately think that Joe Rodon being out would hurt us way more.
Of course, it's hurt any team. It's no question about it. But I mean, it's based on, I think part of this is obviously based on, our opinion on certain players. I personally think Charlie Creswell would be fine backup for Joe Rodon. I'm not saying he's not as good as Joe Rodon. That's it's just fact. But could he be as good as Joe Rodon? Well, quite possibly. He's got similar fundamentals to Joe Rodon in terms of playing style. But I wouldn't mind that. But what we said before is it probably will be Liam Cooper, Pascal Struijk, and then all of a sudden, you're having to play 2 left footers at the back, and it's not the balance is not good. We're seeing it every time we tried to play those 2 together. It hasn't worked. Not because of their individual performances. It's just the whole balance doesn't look right. But for me, I think with Meslier, look at Arsenal. Okay, look at Arsenal, for example, their goalkeeping situation. In terms of Raya Ramsdale, there's been a lot of mention about it in terms of it's how dare they do, all this cringeworthy stuff about how dare they do it to Aaron Ramsdale. But ultimately, it's about finding that extra 1%, 2%. All of a sudden, Arsenal haven't played anywhere near as well as they have last season. The top of the league, knocked out of second gear, and a lot of the games, yes, David Raya had a bad first 2 or 3 games, but he's actually saved them a lot of points as well. He was actually being rock solid for him when they needed him to be, and they've just found that extra 1 or 2%. And as Gabe said, in terms of the save percentages, say, for example, Meslier saves that shot against Rotherham like you'd expect him to. we win the game. We'd probably win the game 3-0, 4-0.
If Meslier had an average save percentage, we'd probably be. Yeah. In every statistical category, he's now. There's some mention in the chat, and I want to give a shout out to here, to whoever mentioned this. Was talking about goals conceded. Goals conceded is a team stat, not a goalkeeper stat. That's why you look at things like save percentage. That's why you look at things like after shot XG. That's why you look at things like their plus minus post shot. Because goals conceded. Obviously, and I don't fault Meslier for all the goals we conceded last season. Our defense was woeful. This season, we have a really good defense that he doesn't get a lot of chances thrown at him, and he's saving them at a rate that it literally, if he was a Premier League goalkeeper, he'd be bottom 3. He's 23rd in the division now. He was 20th last week. Now he's 23rd in save percentage. It's just bad.
I think, guys, what we do need to do is because we don't want this to turn into looking like we've got
again. It has.
Agenda.
Let me just say though, the main reason I brought up the goalkeeping situation was that, in terms of, I think Darlow and Meslier are too similar. I think both are not at the best with the ball at the feet. I just think if you bring in someone who's more suited to the style, that if something did happen, say Meslier got sent off, it'd be nice to just have an experienced, solid backup. In terms of just someone who you could say, just that competition between the goalkeepers. I just think you've seen it with Arsenal. I know Arsenal's a different example, but I think it's worked really well for Arsenal. I know it's probably, from Aaron Ramsdale's point of view, it's not worked so well, but I don't think any player in this squad should be undroppable. I don't think it should be a big thing if we try and improve any position in the squad. I just think goalkeeper's the one where probably the biggest performance deficit at this moment in time. It is the biggest performance deficit. We need more from Meslier.
Yeah, 100%. And Dan Dobbs says, can we just ask one fundamental question? Farke picks Meslier. Why? Well, yeah, and he clearly sees him. As I said, Dan Dobbs, this is just our opinion. We know what we're not football coaches. We're not in recruitment. I'm just saying that, in my opinion, long term.
The question would be, to Dan, is that, say if Darlow smashed it in those 2 games he played in the cup. That Salford game, he had a shocker. Let's be honest. He had an absolute stinker in that Salford game.
Yeah.
Say if Carl Darlow saved 2 or 3 penalties in that game, built loads of confidence, would Meslier still be starting after that Huddersfield mistake? We've seen it with Farke. He's ruthless. I just think the reason Meslier is probably keeping his... The reason Meslier is so comfortable in his position is because Carl Darlow's not done enough in the games he's played. That's the point I was trying to make. I just think he needs someone there putting that little bit of pressure on him, like John Robles did the back end of last season, just to have that option. Because, listen, Meslier, we saw how big a drop-off he had in form the back end of last season. Robles had to go in for the last 3 or 4 games. Would you have the confidence with Carl Darlow in terms of the performances he's showing for him to go and do that if Meslier picks up an injury, a wrist injury tomorrow? That's what you got to look at it from that point of view. And goalkeeper, I think, is a fundamental position. It's the most
massive.
One of the most important positions on the pitch. Goalkeeper and striker. Ultimately, you can play as well as you want, but if your striker is absolutely off it, missing chance after chance after chance, you can easily get sucker punched and lose a game 1-0. How many times have we seen that in the season we went up? Also, goalkeeper, we've seen it there as well. Kiko Garcia barely picked up Farrell. Let's not forget, the season we went up, we almost didn't go up because Kiko Garcia's performances were so poor. And ultimately, it was actually Ilan Meslier who saw us over the line. In terms of remembering the better side of Meslier in those sort of last 7 or 8 games. But
and that's why he's picking Meslier, Oscar, to your point. So because the championship, you don't need an elite goalkeeper to get promoted in the championship. You don't.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'd agree entirely. I think it depends on your team, really. But I think Hermansen, and look at Leicester, I think is a super goalkeeper. I mean, he's one of the best goalkeepers I've seen.
Yeah, I just mean if you go up and down, and you just mentioned it, we got promoted in spite of the guy we had before. It happens. Like this is not a league where marquee goalkeepers are cutting their teeth. Typically, it's just not. It's just the reward you get for splashing out 20 million quid on a goalkeeper in the championship. It doesn't make. That's not a lot of return on your investment.
I'm not saying do that.
But, that's what I'm saying. It's augmenting. It's not really an opposition. It's to your point. It's why we're going to pick between Meslier and Darlow and not splash out money. Like I would love for us to. At this level, probably doesn't make sense because you can get promoted, and many teams do, despite a middling or below average goalkeeper. That being said, this idea that Meslier is above criticism, or that you would have to hedge your bets when you say you want to bring in competition, is silly.
I'd say Mellier's not going to outright cost us promotion. I don't think.
But Oscar, can we? We can have the conversation about Meslier and the drop off there. But I think the drop off as well. This is to your point, Gabe. Like at this moment in time, look, we know, for example, that Daniel Farke loves Yoel Perot. speaks extremely highly of Elan Mele, speaks extremely highly of Joel Perreault. The drop-off from Joel Perreault, if we're categorising him as a striker, to Patrick Bamford is massive. The chasm is huge. And we're talking literally the exact same thing with Elan Mele and Darlow right now. If there's someone waiting in the wings for, and who's competent and who's come in and actually shown something in the same sort of instance as Darlow and Mele, would Joel Perreault be starting right now? Because for me, we can all talk about Elan Mele this, Elan Mele that, but because Leeds are covering it at this moment in time with goals, and we're able to score significantly, probably through the likes of, Crescencio Somerville more consistently now than Joel Perreault, but the guy scored 1 goal in 5. And I don't think he's been immense, really, I don't really think he's hit his pomp really this season. This isn't to bash, it's basically to say, in that January month, does he need a little bit of assistance if we are categorising him as a number 9?
It's a good point, Connor. And to that point, because you can watch the performances and see when he's not on it and when he is. That being said, we've scored 28 goals in the championship, and Perreault has six of them and 1 assist. So he's been involved directly in 25% of all our goals scored. As the manager, despite what we might think and want, well, one of the things that stuck out about him that was craziest to me is he's in a truly woeful category for touches in the box. Like, most of his underlying data is good. His retention of possession, all these kind of things. He's in like the upper 65th plus percentile in all these statistical categories, except for touches in the box. And I mean, it's bad. He's in like the 20th percentile, that means like 80% of other players in his position are better, which is not really what I know. He's being played as a central attacking midfielder, but it's not really what you want for a guy like him. So on one hand, you really want, and to, I think both of your points, you want somebody to be able to come off the bench and give you something a little bit different, right? If it's one of those matches that just isn't for him. I know Oscar's mentioned a couple of times liking Somerville in the inside in the number 10 role. He's been so good out wide that you almost don't want to mess with that. But yeah, I mean, I think as a team we could do. It's not, to Connor's point, it's not so much about slagging off Joel Perreault, I think what we should pronounce it. It's more that, like, hey, if this guy underperforming has been involved in 25% of our total goal haul so far this season, how much better would we be as a team if we had a guy who can slot into that position when it's not Perreault's day and can come on and give you a real attacking threat? Right now, I don't think we have that centrally. Coming off the bench, we certainly don't.
And I think the thing is, I think with Joel Perreault, I think as Gabe kind of alluded to in terms of touches in the box, I think this is what Joel Perreault is, really. I think he is a player who is about clever off the ball movement. He's not someone who, I'm not saying he's someone who's going to make runs in behind and, really press the opposition, but he's someone it's just clever little subtle movements. I think a lot of the goals you look back on, you say, it's a great bit of movement from Perreault. When you actually look back on, properly analyse a goal, you don't necessarily see it live or straight away, but then, you look back on it and think, that's actually a really clever bit of movement. And I think he's just a very subtle kind of player, Joel Perreault.
Didn't you say he was like that guy on the pub team who like doesn't do anything for the whole match? Yeah, he had a pass like that last week to Dan James. It's a beautifully weighted pass from the center of the midfield. He dropped all the way back to get it, and Dan James was through, and I was like, oh, this like, I'm not taking a run at Dan James, but it's one of those few moments in the matches where he does nothing and then has a moment of magic. So he's maybe a frustrating player in that way.
Every game he'll give you a moment of magic. That's the point I was alluding to. Every game he'll do something where you're thinking, either it's a finish, it's a strike from distance, there's a pass through over the top. It is someone who, just one of those players for 89 minutes, he's not a threat. I think, if we remember back to when Chris Wood was at Leeds, very similar. He used to have horrendous drops off in form where, he's just absolutely doing nothing. And then suddenly he pops up and gets a last minute winner. And I think Joel Perreault is similar in that kind of sense. I think he's more skillful than Chris Wood. I think he's a far better player than Chris Wood. But I'm just saying, in that kind of sense, in terms of, he will get you goals over a season. No matter how frustrating it is, he will get you output. And I think at this level, with the team we've got, people like, we don't necessarily need flashy players in that forward line. When you've got Somerville and Rutter, I'm happy to have James and Perreault doing the more subtle things, in terms of
Oscar, is Perreault a Premier League player?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure at this moment in time. I think on technical quality, yes, but physically, he has to improve in his pressing in terms of that. I don't think it's
I think his physicality and athleticism. I know we've spoken about certain other players who've struggled in the Premier League when it comes to that. The speed of the Premier League, the fact that we've paid 16 million quid for this guy. Obviously, we know we're going to be playing in the Premier League. I'm not saying I'm not impressed by Joao Pro at all, because I have been impressed with very large portions of his season. I do wonder about him in the Premier League and how.
Yeah, but I think
he's physical.
You said a few players, though, potentially, this season, you could say, okay, they're doing well now, but, it's like, for example, Sam Barron. Are we fully convinced Sam Barron could play left back in the Premier League?
No, but we haven't spent 16 million quid on Sam Byron.
Okay, but even Jorginho Rutter, what's to say Jorginho Rutter can make the step up again? I think he would, but I'm just saying, the point I'd make with Joel Perreault is in terms of what he lacks athletically, in terms of pressing, off the ball movement, you have to be exceptional technically to justify that. You've got to be a special player to justify that lack of athleticism. And for me, so far, Joel Perreault hasn't shown enough. I think there's enough. Joel Perreault is playing in second gear at this moment in time. I'm not saying he's not trying or anything like that. He's not in full gear at this moment in time. I don't think he becomes a much, much better player. I just think he becomes a lot more efficient, and especially with his finishing. I think his finishing, by his standards, hasn't been quite on it, but it's one of those at Perreault. At this moment in time, you'd have to say, based on performances over the season, probably not, but I think there's still another gear to go. If he finishes like he did at Swansea, in terms of giving you that pure quality on the ball, what he can give you, then yeah, maybe he could make the step up. But there's more obvious players who, you say Somerville, for example, I'd say there's no doubt about it. Second time around in the Premier League, he'd make it. But I think Perreault's one of those who's, at best, he's on the borderline. But yeah, I can see what you're saying, Connor. I think, if we got promoted tomorrow, would we go and buy another striker? I'm not saying we'd sell Perreault, but we'd probably buy another striker as well. I think we would do that. Yeah.
And to that point, I mean, he's not a young player. He's not old, but he's approaching those prime years of his career in his mid-20s. He's had a number of double-digit goal seasons in the Championship, and we got him for less than 20 million quid to stay in the Championship. So what that does tell me is that I think a lot of sides look at him and say he does what he does really well. There's a ceiling with this guy, and it's not a glass ceiling. So I think he's one of those players that probably couldn't make it in any side. He would need a particular setup. And I do wonder, looking at all this kind of underlying data, some things that stick out for us. I mean, we're the number one side in the division for possession. I think his retention of possession, and sometimes I think annoyingly conservative play are a big part of that. He has been kind of quietly productive while not necessarily flattering on the eye test. I do wonder if he's doing what he's been asked to do. But I also think that to many of the comments in the chat, and to both of your to jump on both of yours as well, he doesn't have a physical skill set that pops out at you where he has like this extra gear, this extra burst. He's a kind of guy who's going to sort of lull a defense and then crack them open with either a stunning finish, getting on the end of it by picking up good areas of space, or springing somebody free through the center. That doesn't necessarily jump out to me as a guy that would just tear it up next division. Squad player next division, maybe. But yeah, I think that is probably why, you don't hear a lot of scuttle about Perreault in the Premier League.
Yeah.
It's one of those. I think fundamentally he needs to go up another gear. I think he's one of those players, not because I don't like him as a player. I really like Joel Perreault, but I think it probably sums up more that I like him, the fact that I know he can go up another gear. I think in terms of finishing, especially, that chance he missed against Rotherham, I think he is on form. Joel Perreault, I do genuinely think is the best finisher in the league. I genuinely do think in terms of different finishes that he can produce from distance, near close range, heading, left foot, right foot. We've seen it at Swansea. He's produced for 2 years. They've got a body of work there. He has to find that gear at Leeds. Whether that's because he's playing deeper, I'm not sure. But I still think there's another gear to go in terms of finishing and general end products. It's still good. Let's not make any mistake about it. 6 goals in 14 games. All right, it doesn't sound particularly eye-catching. Over a season, that's 20 goals. So, I think if we'd all said before Joel Perreault signed, you're going to bring in a 20 a 20-goal player. I think we've all signed up for that. Yes, there's frustrations, but there was frustrations at Swansea as well. I think it's just the nature of the player he is. When he doesn't score, he's always going to be in for criticism because he doesn't give you what Somerville and Rutter do in terms of all-round game. Rutter has scored, 4 goals this season, and he's actually playing, is it 4 goals? Whatever it is. 3. I think it's not more than 4 anyway.
No, it's not.
And he's playing higher up the pitch. And listen, Rutter unquestionably has probably been our best or second best player this season. But, I was thinking about Ampherdon and Rodon, actually. Okay, third best.
And Crescencio Somerville.
He's up there. Yeah. I apologise, Crescencio Somerville. I cannot believe I just done that to you. But yeah, fourth best. He's well up there anyway. But
he's in our top 5. That's fair. He's in our top 5.
In those 14 or 15 games he hasn't scored, he's not been criticised because he's done so much for the team in a creativity point of view, just taking players away from the other players. Just all-round quality. That, in terms of Joel Perreault, Dan James is similar. Dan James, when he doesn't score or assist, we've already seen it, since the Rotherham game. He's gone 1 game without a goal and assist, and I wouldn't say Dan James was drastically worse against Rotherham than what he has been in the other games. He just didn't produce in the box like he has done. So I just think Perreault and James are players that need to produce outputs. Otherwise, they're always going to be up for criticism. I just think it's the nature of the
I'll defend Oscar here with some stats. So Oscar, while he's only scored 3 goals, he has 6 assists, which, by the way, 99th percentile, 99th percentile in expected assisted goals, 98th percentile in shot creating actions. It's 4.7 per 90 minutes. That's really, really good. Successful take-ons, 2.4 per 90 minutes. That's 98th percentile. His progressive carries are excellent. Progressive passes. I mean, the completion rate isn't great, but the attempts are pretty high. And the number of progressive passes he's making he's making 3.5 per 90 minutes. That's elite in the championship. So
from a creativity,
your eyes are not deceiving you. And 97th percentile in interceptions. So
with your eyes and stats, he's the most creative player in the league. I think it's pretty safe to say that. So listen, what I'm saying about Rutter is though, when he doesn't get a goal or assist, you can't criticise him because he's just so exceptionally in terms of all-round game. And I just think Joel Perreault, James, and to an extent, people like Jaden Anthony, for example, haven't really got that locker of different skills that they give to the team. I just think that, and that's the nature of it. Pablo's, to an extent, when Pablo didn't score or assist, you could still say, wow, what a player he is. But when, say, for example, Jack Harrison didn't score or assist, you're kind of questioning what's he bringing to the team. I just think different players give you different things. I just think Joel Perreault, he's never going to be a player who gives you 9 or 10 out of 10 performances because he just isn't that influential in terms of how he plays the game.
Well, we've had a very detailed ridden debrief there, lads. Really thoroughly enjoyed it. Make sure you're getting a like on this video, everybody. Make sure you comment and subscribe and watch the video I did earlier as well. A couple of good rumours on there. Can I get a score prediction from you both for tomorrow, please? Gabe, we'll come to you first, mate.
3-1 Leeds.
Okay. Be a good result. Very good result. Be very happy with that. Yourself?
2-0 Leeds.
It's going to be tight. I think it's going to be tight. 2-1. I think we'll win 2-1. Damar says 2-0.
2-1, really, Connor?
Yeah, it's going to be tight. I think...
Damar also asked if I was going to the game tomorrow. Unfortunately, mate, I am not going to the game tomorrow. I do apologise.
Yeah, there you go. 3-1.
17th, it better be better than 2-1.
Well, we had Rotherham the other day in 22nd. Michael Pollard says 3-1, 1-0. So, yeah, a lot of clean sheets here, to be fair. Yeah, I'm going to go with, 2-1. 2-1. And listen, I'll be happy with that. Leeds just need to get back on the... Leeds needs to get back on the horse, I think. Guys, really appreciate that. And we will catch you very, very soon. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining. We'll be back with the debrief next week. Make sure you're still tuning in for all the videos. Make sure you like the videos I say before you leave. And we will see you in a bit. Cheers.